All right. So this morning we are going to walk through DocuSign training. So we're going to go step by step, everything that you'll need to do from getting started in Command all the way through updating documents in DocuSign, sending them for signature, and then uploading them for compliance. As I'm going through the training, please interrupt me with any questions. You can unmute yourself or ask in the chat box, and I'll be sure to pause every once in a while to check to see if there are any questions. This training is all for you, so I want to make sure you walk away feeling a lot more comfortable using DocuSign. So I'm going to get started here in Command. So this is my Command homepage, and I'm going to go to Opportunities. And Opportunities is where I manage all of my potential sales, all my relationships with my clients. And this is where I'm going to get started with connecting to DocuSign. So what I'm going to do is I like to go to the All Opportunities list. And here you can see I've created an opportunity for today. So 1234 Main Street. I'm going to click on that to go into the opportunity. This is going to be my details page. You can see I've filled in as much of the information as I have now at this moment. And you can see that my opportunity name is 1234 Main Street - clients last names - listing. It's very important that when you are creating an opportunity that you give it a name with a similar setup. So where it's the property address - clients last names - buyer or listing. This is going to help the MCA office make sure that any checks or any documents that they receive can be traced back to the correct opportunity. Another thing I want to point out here on the details page is that for the property address, I've gone through to fill this in. I can click on the pencil here, and anytime you see that pencil icon in Command, that lets you know that you can make changes and edit. But it's important that I fill in as much information as possible because DocuSign will pull in the information about my clients, their names, contact information, as well as the property address information directly into DocuSign. So that's going to save me a couple minutes worth of time of having to go in and manually type it. It'll already be there for me. So from here, I need to start preparing my documents. So I'm going to click on the Documents tab here in DocuSign, or excuse me, in Command. And then this will be the page you get the first time you come to the Documents tab within your opportunity. What we're going to want to do over here on the left-hand side, there's a drop-down menu. It says Select, pick checklist type. And I'm going to select residential. This is going to show you the list of all the documents that you will be required to submit with this opportunity, as well as the ones that you are likely going to need to submit. Again, I do want to point out that there are no documents in Command. All of the documents live in DocuSign. So what I need to do is over here in the top right-hand corner is click this button that says Start a Transaction. By clicking Start a Transaction, it will create a room in DocuSign that will be linked to this opportunity in Command. You do have the ability to create a room directly in DocuSign. Just know that you will not be able to retroactively connect that room to an opportunity, which at the end of the day isn't a huge deal, but one of the main benefits of working with DocuSign is its connectivity to Command. So be sure to always click Start a Transaction. So I'm going to click on the Start a Transaction button now, and it's going to open up another browser tab, and it's going to have me log into DocuSign. One thing I want to point out here is that if you have pop-up blocker turned on, it may prevent DocuSign from opening. If you do have it, the pop-up blocker on, you should get a little box here that's, I think, red in color, and you can click that and say allow pop-ups always from DocuSign and Command. So I'm going to log into my DocuSign account. And then you'll notice here that it takes us directly into the Documents tab of our room. And I know that I'm in the correct room because you can see up here, the name of this room is 1234 Main Street - Start Pots - Listing, which is the same name as my opportunity in Command. And then it also pulled in the property address right here. Now, Before, if this is your very first time in DocuSign, before you actually get started in adding documents, we're going to need to confirm our NERDS ID number. And there are two ways that we can do that. And I'm going to show you both of those options right now. So way number one is if you come into DocuSign, click on your initials up here in the top right-hand corner or your picture, click on Preferences. And then over here in the menu on the left-hand side, we're going to click on Integrations. And then you'll see here, I have a list of the National Association of Realtors. I'm going to remove this really quickly. There we go. So here within the integrations section, I'm going to click on Add Provider. And it's going to give me a list of different logos. I'm going to select the National Association of Realtors. So I'm going to click on that logo, and then it's going to ask for my 9-digit NERDS ID number. However, I don't know what that 9-digit ID number is. So I'm going to click on the Find Your Member ID link right here. And this is going to open up a tab where I'm able to search by my last name, email address, and/or license number to get my NERDS ID. So I'm going to use my last name and license number. I do want to point out that you want to make sure that you use the same last name that you used when you signed up to join the Atlanta Realtor Association. If for whatever reason you've had a name change since then, you'll need to email the ARA and let them know of that name change, because your last name will need to match what the National Association of Realtors has on file. So I'm going to click Submit. And now it shows me my 9-digit NERDS ID. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to close this tab. I'm going to paste that right here. And then I'm going to type in my last name. And then I'm going to select the Georgia Association of Realtors from this drop-down menu. And thankfully, it is now in alphabetical order. And then I'm going to click Validate. Now I'm validated for one association. If this is your very first time confirming your NERDS ID, you'll have a secondary pop-up menu here that'll ask you to confirm, accept terms and conditions for the Georgia Association of Realtors. That is option number one for how you can go through and confirm your NERDS ID. The second option is I'm going to go back into the room that I just created. I'm going to come back to the Documents tab. So when you first come into DocuSign, you can come up here and click Add in the top right-hand corner and then select DocuSign Forms. That will give you that same pop-up menu with the different realtor logos, and you would select the National Association of Realtors logo and go through the same steps. And that will give you access to all the GAR forms in DocuSign. Any questions on confirming NERDS ID in DocuSign? All right, perfect. So now let's pick up where we left off. We had created our opportunity. We clicked on Start a Transaction. We are now here in our Documents tab of our room. However, before we start adding documents, let's click over to the Details tab, and we're going to want to fill in as much of the information about this transaction as possible here in the Details tab. And the benefit of adding that information here to the Details tab is that this information here will pre-populate on any of the documents that we create. And that just saves us time from having to manually type it in and ensures that consistency across all the documents. There's kind of two sections of information here on this page. Kind of notice here, the left-hand 2/3 of the page is going to be information about the specific property. So the address, listing date, offer date, all that information about the actual property. Then over here on the right-hand side, this quarter column over here is going to be information about the specific people involved in the transaction. So for today's training, we are working on a listing. And I know, especially as newer agents, we are going to tend to work more with buyers. However, there are some nuances with some of the documents when working with a seller that I want to walk through today. So that's why we're going to do that. But we'll also walk through the purchase and sale agreement. So what I want to do is make sure that DocuSign pulled in my client's contact information into the correct sections over here. So you'll see I have seller one, Tony Stark. There's his name, cell phone, and email address. Perfect for seller one. Scrolling down, we have seller two. We have Pepper Potts, her name, and then email address. At a minimum, you need to have your client's legal name and their email address. You don't need to have their phone number and all the other extra stuff, just their name and their email address. If you do not have an email address for them, you are not able to send them documents for e-signature. Scrolling down, here we have listing agent one, and it pulls in my name and information. So I'm just going to double check that, make sure it's correct. Scrolling down, we have listing agent two. So if I were co-listing this with another agent at First Atlanta, I could put his or her name here and information. Then scrolling down, we have buyer one. So if you were working with buyers, you would leave all those top fields about the seller and listing agent blank, and you would come here to buyer one and fill in this information about your client. So buyer one, buyer two, buyer agent one, and buyer agent two. Now, one thing I want to point out, since today we're working with on a listing, you may feel compelled to come in here and put in all the name, email address, and contact information for everything for your co-op agent. So for today, it would be a buyer's agent. That is fine. However, I recommend never sending documents to a co-op agent for signature directly through DocuSign. I'll explain why later on, and I'll be sure to reiterate the same point, but do not recommend sending documents to a co-op agent through DocuSign for signature. So now that we have the layout of the details page, let's go through, let's edit, add any information that's missing, and make sure everything's good to go before we start typing and updating our documents. So I'm going to click the edit button up here in the top right-hand corner. And then with everything, we'll just kind of start at the top of the page and we will work our way down. So we have our room name, which I'm going to leave the same because I like that it matches my opportunity name in command. And then local currency, I'm just going to select the US dollar. If I had my MLS ID, I could go ahead and type that in here. I'm just going to put it in a fake number. Origin of lead, company, room status. You don't have to update those. It's fine. Our property address, double check, make sure that this is correct. So we have our address, our city, our county, state, postal code, property type. This is residential detached. Year built, I am going to select that this is built in 2001. Special circumstances, there aren't any special circumstances, so we are good to go there. All right, listing details. So we are going to list this today on Friday the 10th. Our listing expiration, let's do August 10th. Original listing amount, we'll do 375. And let's copy this and paste the same thing into all these other fields. Scrolling down, offer details. So we are just getting ready to list this, so I don't have any offers, so I can leave this blank. Same thing with highest bid, closing details, additional information, property details. I can leave all this blank. However, once I get to those that part of the transaction where I do have this information, I can come back and easily edit this page to add in that information. Now, since we have all the information about the property updated, let's double check the information for our clients. So we have Tony Stark here, his phone number, email address, perfect. Continuing to scroll down, we have Pepper Potts and her email address, which is just my personal email. Scrolling down, double checking my information, perfect. Now, one thing I want to point out, and this is really small and nuanced, for company name, it's going to automatically default to Keller Williams Realty First Atlanta. However, Lynn has confirmed that we can remove Realty from the company name, and Keller Williams First Atlanta is appropriate. It's a small little thing. I'll just point out later on when we are in some of the GAR forms, the company name, when it has realty in it, will overlap some of the other text on the form. Not a huge deal, but just something to keep in mind. Continuing to scroll down, we have our address, city. Perfect. Everything looks good to go. Listing agent, I don't have a co-listing agent. And then I'm not working with buyers. So everything on this page looks good to go. So I'm going to click save in the bottom right-hand corner. And now the details tab has been updated. Once I've updated the details tab, now I'm ready to go into the documents tab and start working with the GAR forms. To add GAR forms, I'm going to click on add up here in the top right-hand corner. And I'm going to select the DocuSign forms option from the dropdown. You should see this pop-up window. And on the left-hand side, you should see groups up here at the top and then libraries down here at the bottom. The libraries are going to be all the different forms. So you can see we have the GAR, Georgia Association of Realtors. If you click on this, it's going to load all 180 of the GAR forms, which is great. You can come up here, you can search for the forms. So I can search for purchase and sale. And that's going to pull up all my purchase and sale agreements. But you'll notice when I do that, there are like 15 different options here. So you want to be really mindful to make sure that you pay attention to the name of the form. So you don't select the incorrect one. So what you can also do, so here is the GAR purchase and sale agreement. It has a form number F201. You can actually search that form number. And so after a while, you'll get used to know, okay, perfect, F201 is going to be my purchase and sale agreement. I can just search that and make it a little bit easier. Same thing with the seller's property disclosure. If I just type in seller's property, I get 4 different options for seller's property disclosure. And I, more times than I care to admit, have sent the incorrect version of the seller's property disclosure to my clients, which then just isn't a huge deal, but then just has to go after void the envelope, resend it, and just makes me look not super professional. So just be mindful that you select the correct forms. However, rather than having to go through all 180 forms up here within our groups, I've created these groups to help find the forms that you are going to be most likely to need when working with either a buyer or a seller. So we have our buyer's packet here, and this is going to be all the GAR forms, probably about 85% of the GAR forms that you will need when working with a buyer. And just to help it save time and be much easier for you to find them. Same thing with seller's packet here, go through and find, much easier to find the forms that you need. For the brochures, we have our buyer's brochures and seller's brochures. The brochures are just some additional information that you can share with your clients that through GAR that explains different parts of the transaction, the process, radon, agency. They don't have to assign them, but you can always share them as more information. So for today, I'm going to click on the seller's packet. And I need my listing agreement. So here we have, and it lets me know that this is required. So I'm going to select my listing agreement. Then I also need to include my community association disclosure, because I do know that this home has a HOA. I also need my seller's property disclosure statement. So you can see here I have 2 of them. This is a single family home, so I'm going to select the form F301. Perfect. So I've selected those 3 forms. Lets me know up here. I can click on the selected. It's going to show me the 3 forms that I have selected. Now, in addition to these listing forms, I want to include the purchase and sale agreement, because I do know that as newer agents, we tend to work with buyers more often. So I want to make sure we have the opportunity to walk through that form, so that way you can familiarize yourself with it. So I'm going to come back down here to my libraries, select GAR, and I'm going to search F201 because I want to go ahead and add that purchase and sale agreement. I have 4 forms selected. I'm going to click Add Selected. And now it's going to add those 4 documents into my room. You'll notice that I have a Room Docs folder here. The Room Docs folder is going to be the default folder for any time that you add a document to a room. So whether it is you've added it from the library, you've received a signed document from your clients, or you've uploaded a document from your computer, it's going to default into that Room Docs folder. Now, I do want to point out that in DocuSign, you can organize your room any which way that you prefer. No one is going to come into your room and scrutinize it. So that means you do have the ability to organize it if you choose to. If you would like to create multiple folders to kind of ease finding the correct documents, you can do that. We're going to select Actions up here in the top right-hand corner, and then click Add Folder. And I'm going to give this the folder name of Listing Agreement. So I want to have a folder for all of my documents that are just pertaining to my listing agreement. So I'm going to click Create. And now I have my listing agreement folder. Now I can move documents from one folder to another folder. Very simply, there are 2 ways that we can do it. The first option is you can select the checkbox in the top left-hand corner of that document icon. And whenever you do that, and you select your documents, a toolbar will appear at the top. Roll your mouse over the different icons and it will show you what they are. And you can select the move icon. And it's going to give us the ability to select a destination we want to move these to, folder in current room, and then listing agreement, and click move. The page will reload, and now those documents are in my listing agreement folder. So that's option number 1 for how you can move documents. The second option is very simple. Roll your mouse over the document icon that you want to move, hold your mouse down, and then just drag it and drop it into the desired folder. Pretty easy. Any questions so far about adding documents, the different groups or libraries, or creating folders in the Documents tab?
No, I think you answered it. As far as for me, it just really, my biggest question was how do you know which documents to send? So I do appreciate the fact that you've already created the packets for, so thank you for that.
Yeah, the groups will be probably about 85–90% of the forms that you need. When in doubt, always feel free to reach out to Lynn LaCroix and Alita Baverman. They are our compliance brokers, as well as your closing attorney. So those will probably be your 3 best resources to confirm which forms you need when in doubt. Also, there are a handful of GAR contract trainings throughout the year. I think probably end of this month, we may have one to go through the mid-year changes. That's also a great resource for you to learn what all the different forms are and which ones you'll need to use and when.
I do have another question.
Yep.
So obviously, as a new agent, we work mostly with buyers. The buyer brokerage agreement, what would you send those with these documents, or would you create a separate opportunity and a separate envelope for that, for the client to sign? How would you do that?
So the process that we're going through this morning with the listing agreement is going to be the same exact process as working with the buyer. As soon as you are ready to send that buyer brokerage agreement to your client, everything that we do here today is going to be the same thing you would do with them. Just know that if let's say you're working with the same client on 2 different transactions, you're going to help sell their home, and then you're going to help them buy a new home. Those would be 2 separate opportunities, which would then be 2 separate DocuSign rooms. But you do not need to create additional opportunities or rooms for different stages of the transaction and the different forms that you're going to send. That's what we're going to do in envelopes to help manage that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so now we've added our forms to our Documents tab. Now let's start updating those forms. So I'm going to get started with the exclusive seller listing agreement. I'm just going to click on it to open it. We'll give it a second to load. And then with everything, just start at the top and work your way down, filling in the information that you need. So you can see here for section 1, it's already added in, pre-populated my address, and this information comes directly from the details tab. But I am missing the tax parcel ID. So I do need to add that. There are multiple places you can get that information. The easiest is going to be from the tax records, either through Realist, through FMLS, or the county tax assessor website. But you are also, you can ask our closing attorney partners. They'd be happy to get that information for you. So I'm just going to type in a pretend tax parcel ID. Then for section B, our legal description, we need to confirm the exact specific legal description of this property to make sure that we're not selling or accidentally selling a home somewhere else in Fulton County. We have 4 different options here. The 2 most common, well, let me preface, before I get too far, let me preface this. Today's training is about how to use DocuSign, not what the correct way to fill in the information on these forms is. To go through and learn what the correct information is, attend the trainings from our closing attorney partners or our compliance brokers, Lynn and Alita. I just want to make sure that you know how to use DocuSign. So just know that anything that I go through today is not actually how to fill in this form correctly or legally. So here for our legal description, the 2 most commonly used options are going to be 1, which is going to be attached as an exhibit here too. So you can reach out to our closing attorney partners, Campbell and Brandon, Michael and Gray, MMH, and they will happily get the legal description or limited warranty deed over to you. Or option 2 here is the same as deed book and page. So you can go into the tax records and pull in the deed book and page. Of those 2 most commonly used, attach as an exhibit here too is going to be the preferred way. So I'm going to select 1. You can see it's super easy to go through these forms. Just click on the field and select it. Now I'm going to scroll down to section 2, list price. It's pulled in my list price from my details tab. Our commencement agreement date, I'm going to give this a date of today. So we'll do 6/10. And then I'm just going to tab over and put 2022. And an ending agreement date, we selected 8/10/2022. So you can see it's just super easy to go through, tab over the different fields, just type in information. Here for marketing, we are going to use FMLS, Georgia MLS, and KWLS. And we are going to commence a marketing commencement date. And let's do, we'll do 6/11/2022. And we will have this listed within 5 days of that date. One thing I want to point out here is that whenever you are typing in a date in a DocuSign form, please use the numerical format. The issue has been corrected, but there was just in the past, if you would actually have typed out June, June, it would have caused an error and it would not save any of your information. So just always please use the numerical format for dates. All right. Oh, misspelled KWLS. Let's correct that. I'm just going to continue to scroll down our commission here. So I have negotiated 6% with my sellers, and I'm going to share half of that with my co-op buyer's agent. Our protected period, I have negotiated 90 days with my clients. Our agency and brokerage, the following types of agency relationships not offered. We do not offer dual agency or sub agency. And the broker, if the broker offers dual agency, which we do not, so we can click does not. Section 7, the following special circumstances. So thankfully for today's transaction, we do not have any special circumstances. You'll want to be sure when you're meeting with your clients that you ask if there are any special circumstances or if they don't explicitly share. And you can always reach out to Lynn and Alita as well as any closing attorneys to see if there's any specific information or documentation that you need. Section 8, the seller does authorize the broker to assist in negotiating terms. Continuing to scroll down. Now we get to the part of the document that just explains what everything means. So lots of text. Keep scrolling. Still scrolling. All right. So now we have our brochures. So talked about those earlier when we were adding forms to the documents tab. These are the brochures that provide additional information. Select any brochure that you want to send to your client. And just be sure that they're selected here and that you do actually send those. Scrolling down, we have exhibits and addenda. So we have our legal description, and I'm going to name this Exhibit A. So I do want to include that with this document, with my exclusive seller listing agreement. Special stipulations. Here you'd want to type in any stipulations that you want to have. You can type in any that you want to use. One that I like to use is all parties acknowledge and agree this agreement is cancelable at any time with 24-hour written notice. I like to include that in my brokerage agreement, so either my listing agreement or buyer brokerage agreement, just because some clients will get weird and they feel like they're signing a contract, and this is not a contract. This is just an agreement between two parties, and we are establishing that fiduciary responsibility and what I am and am not able to do and how I'm getting paid. The second stipulation, and you probably start to hear about this a little bit more since we are kind of starting to get into that shifting market, is going ahead and negotiating or planning out any sales price reductions. So you can say all parties agree to a price reduction if home is not under contract or actively negotiating an offer after 14 days on market. So that's just another common one. If you wanted to, you could kind of spell out what the specific sales price or list price reductions would be. But just some things that you want to include there. You can add as many special stipulations as you would like that can fit here. If for whatever reason you have so many special stipulations they do not fit in this box, there is an additional special stipulations page. You would just check this box here and then add form 246 to your documents. Scrolling down, now we get to the signature page. You can see that it pre-populates with my client's names and email address. So good to go there. It's pre-populated most of my information. I'm just going to fill in the fields that are missing. For whatever reason, I don't understand why these fields do not pre-populate. However, as kind of a DocuSign 2.0 lesson, you can create a form template and that would automatically add these fields for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill them in. And I recommend filling them all in so that way you're just less likely to get a note from Lynn or Alita that you need to make an update to your forms. All right, so now once everything has been updated and good to go, I want to click the Save and Close button. I can either click it here at the bottom of the document or up here in the top right-hand corner. So I'm going to click Save and Close. And now all those updates have been saved. Any questions about the process of going through and filling out the listing agreement? All right. So the next form we're going to want to fill out is our seller's property disclosure form. So I'm gonna do the same thing as I did with the listing agreement and just click on it to open it up. All right. And just like we did before, we'll start at the top and work our way down. So here we have our exhibit box. Since this is going to become an exhibit to a contract, I'm going to go ahead and leave this blank because it could, I don't know, whatever the buyer's agent, what exhibit letter they want to make this. It's pre-populated our address information in here, so good to go there. We don't have an offer date, so I'm going to leave that blank. And then scrolling down, now we have all these fields. Now you'll notice I do not have any text boxes or check boxes or anything for me to fill out on this form. And that is purposeful. As agents, we are legally not allowed to fill out any of the disclosures on behalf of our clients. So that includes the seller's property disclosure, the community association disclosure, and lead-based paint are going to be your three most common ones. So having no fields here for us to fill in is correct. It kind of seems a little bit jarring as you're like expected to have all these text fields here. However, all these fields will be mapped to your seller one, so he or she can fill them in. So I'm going to continue to scroll down. We have our client's name, so good to go. And I'm going to click Save and Close. Now I'm going to open up the community association disclosure. And I'm going to start at the top and we'll work our way down. And this is going to be the same setup as the seller's property disclosure, where I'm just going to double check that the property information has been added correctly. But again, everything else on this document that needs to be filled in will be mapped to seller one. I do not have access or the ability to update this information. So I just want to make sure everything is good to go. And then we have our seller one, seller two, perfect. And we will click Save and Close. So now we've gone through and we have updated our documents for our listing. The next step I want to do is walk through the purchase and sale agreement, because this is going to be a commonly used form as throughout your entire real estate career. So I'm just going to click on the purchase and sale agreement to open it up. All right. So just like we did with the previous documents, we'll start at the top and we will work our way down. I know it's going to be a little bit unorthodox for me as the listing agent to go through here, the purchase and sale agreement. Just want to make sure that we are familiarizing you with the form and kind of how to fill in the fields, but because it's going to be the same process when you're working with a buyer. So start at the top and we're going to put in an offer date. So let's put in an offer date of today. Double check our property address. I need to add in the tax parcel ID. So again, I would get this from the tax records. I have my legal description. I have my limited warranty deed that the closing attorney has provided. And then our section 2, the purchase price. So how the buyer is going to pay $375,000, and closing costs, they're going to ask for $2,500. The closing date shall be, let's do 7/10/2022. They will take possession at closing. The closing attorney, I'm going to do Campbell and Brandon, and their phone number, I do not know off the top of my head, but I would just get it from their website. So I'm just going to put in a fake number there. Holder of earnest money, we're going to have KWFA be the holder of earnest money. This earnest money will be paid by check, and that will be an amount of, let's do $3,750 within 3 days of binding. Section 8, our inspection and due diligence. I'm negotiating 5 days for due diligence. You can put in as many days as you would like. Lead-based paint. This home was built in 2001, so it was not built prior to 1978, so I do not need to worry about lead-based paint. Here we have our brokerage relationships. So you can see here, Keller Williams First Atlanta, how it fits perfectly within that text box. The buyer's agent is going to be Harry Norman, and they are representing their buyer as a client. I'm representing my seller as a client. And I am not aware of any material relationships. I'm going to give this offer until 12 p.m. On 6/11/2022. So super easy just to kind of tab through, check the boxes, add in the information as needed. Most of these forms, most of these GAR forms are going to be all text. And this is all text that's explaining what those fields are on page 1 or 2. Let's keep scrolling and scrolling. Perfect. All right. So now we get to our exhibits and addenda. For whatever reason, I don't know why the all cash sale one is checked. Who knows? We'll uncheck that. So we are going to select our community association disclosure, our seller's property disclosure, and we also have our legal description. So I'm going to make my seller's property disclosure Exhibit A, my community association Exhibit B, and then my legal description Exhibit C. You would likely also include your financing contingents or your financing exhibit, so conventional loan, FHA, VA, or all cash, and that could theoretically be Exhibit D. So I have all those checked, so good to go. Now we have our special stipulations. So we're going to include any special stipulations that we want to include with this offer. Thankfully, the Georgia Association of Realtors has reformatted this so we can actually type in some stipulations here. So you can just you can start typing in your stipulation, more steps, lots of steps, more. I like to number them just so it's easy to read, and I like to include a space between them. So that way the co-op agent is more easily able to read and understand them. If for whatever reason you have so many special stipulations that they do not fit in this box, you can use the additional stipulations page, which is F246. So just check that and add that into your documents. Continuing to scroll down, we have our signature page. So you'll notice here, my clients' names and email addresses are pre-populated. Now, one thing I like to point out, and this is 100% a personal preference, but I do not like to share my clients' contact information with co-op agents. I'm sure that 9 times out of 10, my co-op agent is going to be very respectful of the relationship that I have with my clients. However, I don't want a chance that I could be potentially working with a shady character who would then want to reach out to my clients directly and try to negotiate a deal that could cut me out or affect my commission. So my first thought would be to delete my client's email address off this page. However, I do not want to delete any of the pre-populated information from the GAR forms, because if I delete or change that information on the GAR form, it will delete or change that information on the details tab, which would mean that I would delete my client's email address. So when I go to send these documents, I wouldn't have an email address to send it to. So leave your client's email address here. If this is a concern of yours, I will show you when we are preparing these documents for signature, how we can hide their email address to protect their privacy. Scrolling down, we'll just double check all of our information, fill in any of the missing fields. Again, as kind of a DocuSign 2.0, you could make a form template. You could go through here and fill in all the information for the co-op agent. That is a nice thing to do, especially if you were trying to have your offer stand out. Trying to minimize the amount of work that co-op agent will have to take will help your offer stand out even just a tiny bit. But again, I do not recommend sending any documents for signature to co-op agents in DocuSign. All right, so scrolling down, I'm going to click Save and Close. All right, so now we have gone through, we've added our documents, we've updated them. Any questions that you have on any of the forms or any of the steps that we've gone through so far before we set these up for signature? All right. So now our next step is to send these forms to our clients for signature. The way that we do that in DocuSign is through an envelope. And the way that envelopes are explained to me by Michael New, and I really like this analogy, so I like to share it, is that think of envelopes in DocuSign like a manila envelope in real life. And let's say you've gone through, you've printed out all of your GAR forms, you've written everything in by pen or pencil, and you've organized those forms and put them in a manila envelope on the corner of your desk. So then when you see your clients, you can hand them that envelope and say, please review and sign these forms. The envelope here in DocuSign is that same thing. It is just a means to organize and send over. There are two ways that we can create envelopes. The first way is within the Documents tab, is you can select whatever forms that you would like to send for signature. The toolbar will appear at the top of the page, and you can roll your mouse over the icons, and you can come here to the Create Envelope. If you click that, this will create an envelope and have added those forms, those selected forms to it. That's option number one. The second option is I can click on the Envelopes tab up here at the top of the screen. And then up here in the top right-hand corner, I can click on New. And now I am creating an envelope. And with everything, we'll just start at the top and work our way down. So I'm going to give this an envelope name. It's going to default to Please DocuSign, but please go through and actually give these envelope names because throughout a transaction, you're going to send 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 tons of envelopes, especially if you're working with buyers and you're having to submit multiple offers on multiple different properties. So you do want to make sure that you can keep them straight just in the event that if you have to go back and reference anything, it is easy to find. The envelope name is for your internal purposes, but just be mindful, don't put anything in there that you would not want a client to see or read. All right, so now that we have an envelope name, now we can add documents to the envelope. We have three different options for how we can add documents. We can click on Room Docs, and that's going to pull up documents that we've created in our room. Templates are going to be templates that we have access to, either that we've created or that the MCA office has organized for us, and we will use this in just a moment. And then our last option is More, and this gives us the ability to upload a document directly from our computer. So if I have a PDF from a co-op agent, I can add that this way here. I'm going to get started by selecting Room Docs. And you'll see here, I have my two different folders. So I have my Room Docs and my Listing Agreement. So I'm going to click into my listing agreement, and it shows my three documents. So I want to include all three: my listing agreement, my seller's property disclosure, community association. I'm going to do the same thing for Room Docs, and I'm going to select the purchase and sale. Up here, it shows me I have 4 documents selected. So I'm going to click Add Selected, and it's going to add those documents to this envelope, and it's going to add them in alphabetical order. Perfect. Now, there are 2 additional documents that I need to include when working with a buyer or a seller. We do need to have the Rawls Group affiliated marketing and wire fraud prevention disclosures reviewed and signed. Those documents are added as a template here in the envelope. And the reason they are set up as templates is because, well, there's 2 reasons. One, there isn't any information for you as the agent to fill in. It really is just forms for your clients to read through and sign. And second is that there are likely going to be changes to these forms throughout the year. So setting it up as a template allows the MCA office to make those edits throughout the year and not have to interrupt any of your transactions. So I'm going to click on Use a Template. And then I'm going to select the shared with me button over here on the left-hand side. And we're going to give this a minute to load. You can see it has a little spinning wheel there. And this is going to pull up all of the templates that the MCA office has shared with us as agents. Now, it's going to take a little while to load. I don't know why it takes so long, but I promise it will load. Perfect. So now we have our list of documents. So we need our affiliated marketing and wire fraud. I'm going to scroll through my list here, and I can see I have a buyer-affiliated marketing and a buyer-wire fraud disclosure. I'm going to continue to scroll down, and I have a seller-affiliated marketing and a seller-wire fraud. These are actually the same forms. However, you want to be sure to select the version based on which side of the transaction you are working, because the signature field will be mapped accordingly. So today, my opportunity is with, and my DocuSign room is working with a seller. So when I select the seller versions, so that way when I go to add them, add the signatures, everything is mapped and ready to go. If I were working with a buyer, I'd want to be sure to add the buyer version of those forms. So I'm going to click add selected so I can add those 2 templates to my envelope. Perfect. And you can see here, it has added those 2 documents. Now, I want to send these documents for review and signature in a very specific order. I want my clients to review the listing agreement, then the seller's property disclosure, then the community association disclosure, then the wire fraud and affiliated marketing disclosures before reviewing a purchase and sale agreement. It is at this stage in the envelope creation that I'm able to reorder the forms. I must do it here. I will not have the ability to change the order of the forms once I click next and go into the envelope editor. So to reorder your forms, just roll your mouse over the document icon, click your mouse down, hold it down, and drag it into the desired position. So I've moved my listing agreement to be first, then I want my seller's property disclosure to be second, then my community association disclosure, then I want my affiliated marketing disclosure, and then I want my wire fraud prevention, and then my purchase and sale to be last. So now I have these forms in my desired order. So now we're going to continue to scroll down. And now we're going to add recipients to the envelope. 9 times out of 10, when I'm talking with agents and they're having issues with getting signatures for clients, it is at this specific step within the process that an error is made. So please be very mindful of when you are adding recipients. We have 3 different options: pre-tagged roles, room participants, and email addresses. If pre-tagged roles is available, 100% of the time, select pre-tagged roles. All of the GAR forms that we've been working on this morning, as well as the 2 disclosures that we've just added, have all of the initial fields, signature fields, data input fields, all mapped to specific roles. Those are those pre-tagged roles. If you do not select pre-tagged roles, you will have to manually add every single signature field, initial field, text field, and that's going to take up so much time. So please be sure to always select pre-tagged roles when it is an available option. All right, so I'm going to select pre-tagged roles here, and it's going to give me this nice pop-up window with all of the available roles on all of the forms that I have added to my envelope. But I'm only going to select the roles that I need signatures for. So I need seller 1, seller 2, and a listing agent. Now over here on the right-hand side, I have these drop-down menus, and this is going to show me all the available participants and available recipients in this envelope. So I'm going to set seller 1 as Tony Stark, seller 2 as Pepper Potts, and listing agent as myself. Your name will likely be in here twice, in this list twice. It doesn't matter, just pick whichever one you want. And again, I want to reiterate again, do not add a co-op agent here as a pre-tagged role to send this form for signature. The reason is the way that DocuSign works is every single person that is added here as a recipient to this envelope needs to sign these documents in order for it to be considered complete. The likelihood is that when you send a document over to a co-op agent, you will have some form of negotiation, some back and forth before all parties agree to the terms of that form, which means that that co-op agent likely is not going to sign that form. If that co-op agent does not sign that form, then that form will not be complete and you will not have a signed version of it in your DocuSign room. So even though that myself and my two sellers have signed it, I do not have access to those signatures because the form is not considered complete if the buyer's agent is still out and not signing because we're still negotiating a close date or something. So please just select yourself and the clients that you are working with to send for signature. So I'm going to click Add Selected. And now it is going to add our recipients to the envelope. Let's give this a second to load. Now there's a fair amount of information here that I want to talk through. So to the left of each one of our recipients' names, we have a little text box and it has the number 1 in it. That number is going to be the signing order for this envelope. The system is going to default to 1, which means that everybody has the opportunity to sign at the exact same time. However, for today, I want my seller 1, I want Tony Stark to be able to review and fill in all the information on the disclosures before it goes to Pepper, because then Pepper has the ability to review and make sure that all the information that Tony put in there is correct. And then it can come to me once both sellers have signed, and I have the ability to make that listing agreement binding at that very moment. So the way to update your signing order is just click into that text box and update that number, and the system will reorder it. So I'm going to make myself 3rd. Now I do want to point out that when I send this envelope out for signature, Pepper will not receive an email that she's able to sign until Tony has 100% completed filling in the forms and signing all of them. And I will not receive it as a listing agent until Pepper has done the same exact thing. To the right of that, we have our clients' names. So Tony and our email addresses. We'll just double check that to make sure that's good. Then we have this drop-down menu, and it's going to default to needs to sign. So I can click on this drop-down menu, and it's going to give me a couple different permissions for this recipient. 9 times out of 10, you're going to need to, you just leave it as needs to sign. That means that there's going to be an actual field on one of these forms for this client to sign. The next is going to be needs to view. I do want to point out that if you set someone up as a needs to view, that means they actually have to go into DocuSign and view the forms and click complete for their step to have been completed. You can have receives a copy. So if you have maybe someone that's indirectly involved in the transaction or is involved but not actually signing the contract, maybe it's a spouse or it's a parent, but they still just want to be kept in the loop on everything, you can set this up as receives a copy, and they'll just receive a copy of these forms, but they won't have the ability to sign. You can also set up a potentially a closing attorney or a lender partner to receive a copy. So just in that way, they can get those forms immediately as they're signed so they can start working on the file. But if you do that, I would recommend that you give that lender or closing attorney a heads up so that they know what it is that they're looking for. And then specify recipient, you will likely not use that. And then if you need to sign as a witness for a signer, you would set that up here. So 9 times out of 10 needs to sign is going to be a-okay to leave that as your default permission. And then to the right of that, we have this more dropdown with 2 options: add access authentication and add private message. If your client is a little skittish about signing forms electronically, you may want to add an access authentication. And this is going to add an additional layer of security. So that way, if your client's worried that someone's going to break into his or her email account and start signing all these DocuSign forms, and then he'll be under contract for a home he never wanted to see or can't afford, you can say, hey, Tony, I can add an access authentication, and that's going to allow me to create a special code that only I know, and I will tell you that you will have to input before you have the ability to review and sign these forms. So I'm going to just type in my special little code here of 12345, and I'll tell Tony, hey, Tony, in your inbox, you should have received an email from DocuSign. Click on the review documents and then type in the code 12345 to get started. Now, this is a little simple. I can make this any sort of thing. You could do a phone number or your client's phone number or whatever, but that would just add that additional layer of security. I don't actually want to use it, so I'm going to click discard. And then the second option here is more is add a private message. So as seller one, Tony is going to be the one that's responsible for filling in all the information on the disclosures. So I want to send him a quick special note. Hi, Tony. Please be sure to review and fill in all of the fields on the seller's property disclosure and community association disclosure. Thank you, Nick. Now I'm just typing in abbreviations here, but I would recommend when working with clients not to use abbreviations. So Tony's going to receive this special message just as that last second reminder. All right, yep. Fill in those forms, and only Tony will receive this. So now we have added our recipients. So we've added our seller one, seller two, and myself as a listing agent. I've designated the signing order, and I've added a special private message just for Tony. Now that we have all of our recipients set up, I'm going to scroll down, and now we're going to send a message to all recipients. The email subject here is going to be please DocuSign, but I want to update this to the property address, Main Street, and I'm going to exclusive seller listing agreement and purchase and sale. This way your clients will know that this is an actual email that they need to review and is the specific documents that you have likely already talked to them about receiving and signing. And I'm going to add a quick little message here. Hi, Tony and Pepper, please review and e-sign the forms. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, Nick. So we have created our envelope here. We have given our envelope a name. We've added our documents. We've added our templates. We've put them in a specific order. We've added our recipients. We've put them in a specific signing order, added our private message, and then added a message for all of our recipients. Any questions before we click next and go into the envelope editor where we can double check the forms and signature fields?
No.
All right. Perfect. So I'm going to click next up here in the top right-hand corner, and this is going to take me to the envelope editor. Give this a second to load. All right. So there is a fair amount of information on this page. So let's talk through the layout before we actually start doing anything. Up in the top right-hand corner, we have this little arrow. This is the go back arrow. If you ever find anything, like an error that you need to correct, or for whatever reason you just need to go back, you can click this go back, and this will exit out of the envelope editor. DocuSign is saving your updates like every 2 or 3 seconds, so the likelihood is it will save your changes. Below that, I have where it shows Tony's name with a yellow circle, and it's a drop-down menu. Now notice how all these fields down here have a yellow icon to the left of them. That lets me know that all of these fields, if I were to add any of them, anything that would be colored yellow is going to be assigned to Tony. If I click on this drop-down menu, I can select Pepper, and you see she has a a blue dot, and now all these standard fields icons change to blue. Same thing with myself. I can select myself, and I have the color purple. So now anything I see related that is purple, I know is going to be related to me. This is just an easy way to help you visually identify who is assigned to which fields. The actual colors themselves of yellow, blue, purple are insignificant, and throughout a transaction, they will change out for each person on the envelope, and it doesn't matter. It's just a way that I can easily say, perfect, everything yellow is assigned to Tony. Perfect. These are all the additional standard fields that you can add. So if I ever need to add an additional signature or initial field, email, text field, those are all right here. In the middle of the page, we have our preview of the documents. So you can just scroll down and see all the information. This is where we have the ability to go through and double check, make sure we haven't missed anything. Over here on the right-hand side, we have thumbnails of each one of the forms. So you can see how it loads these quick little thumbnails. And then here on page 10, on the thumbnail, it has this little color tab. And that lets me know that there is something on this page that is assigned to Tony, Pepper, and myself. So I can click on that page. It's going to take me directly to it. And here I can see the signature fields and date signed assigned to both Tony and Pepper, and scroll down and then myself. I'm going to scroll up to the top, and now I can click through and it's going to show me thumbnails of all the different documents that I have. And this just makes it super easy to review and double check anywhere that there's going to be a signature field. All right, so now that we have the layout of this, the envelope editor, let's kind of start at the top of our documents, double check them, make sure all the signature fields are good to go, and then we can send it. All right, so scrolling down, it looks like here for the legal description, for whatever reason, that checkbox didn't save. So I'm going to select myself from the drop-down menu. I'm going to select the checkbox icon, and I'm going to add that there, and I'm going to double check that. So it is checked. Now, whenever you add a standard field, this menu will appear on the right-hand side. It has a couple different options. I'm going to select read only for this checkbox because I want it to appear when everybody signs it. So I'm select read only. Continuing to scroll down, double check our list price information, our commencement date, end date, marketing commencement. Everything is looking good to go so far. Still scrolling, still scrolling. All right, so now we get to our brochures. We do want to make sure that we had added these brochures here. And then the same thing here for our legal description. I don't know why that checkbox didn't save, so I'm going to double check that there. Double check it, make read only. And then I also want to add in the exhibit letter here. So I'm going to add a text box. I'm going to format that to fit. I'm going to type in the letter A. And then I also want to uncheck required field and set as read only because I want it to appear when my clients sign it, which will be before me. Special stipulations, there they are. If you need to add any additional stipulations here, you can add a text box and fill those in this empty space. Scrolling down, we're going to double check signatures. So we have signature and date signed, good to go. Same thing for myself here, good to go. Now remember, since I'm the third and final signer, I can actually make my listing agreement binding when I sign. The way that I can do that is I can add a text box here and add in a date signed here. So I'm going to add in that text box here. And I'm going to leave that blank. But you'll notice that this text box is filled in purple. When a text box or icon, standard field icon is filled in with that color, that lets me know that it's a required field. So when I go to sign, the system is going to stop me and say, hey, Nick, you need to fill in this text box before you're able to move on to the next field to sign. So that is a great way that I can go ahead and add in that time and date for this document to become binding. One feature that I really like in DocuSign is that I've already formatted this text box here. I can click copy and then paste, and I can just move that pasted text box right there. And then for the date, I can just add the date signed field right here, and that'll automatically add the date to this form. So once I sign it, our listing agreement will be binding and will save me from having to go in and create a new envelope and a couple extra steps there. Scrolling down, now we get to a seller's property disclosure. Perfect, not missing any information up here. Now you'll see that all these text fields are outlined in yellow. So this text field and this button over here, everything is outlined in yellow. That the yellow lets me know that this is assigned to Tony. So I'm going to select Tony's name from the dropdown, just so we have everything yellow over here. However, when a text box or radio button is only outlined, that lets me know that it is not a required field. So if I click on that text box and I come over here, this required field button isn't checked. That is important because if the field is not required, the system will just jump over it to go to the next required field. So oftentimes when we send our disclosures to our clients, they'll just go from signature field to signature field to signature field. And they'll be like, hey, I never got the disclosure to fill out. I wasn't able to fill it out. Something's wrong. Well, technically nothing's wrong. It's just kind of more they jumped over it. However, one quick little workaround for that is that for this on the seller's property disclosure, what year is the main residential dwelling constructed? I can select that text box and I can make that text box required. Now, the system is going to stop Tony and say, hey, Tony, you have to fill in a date here. And it's going to be much easier for Tony to then go through and fill in all of these remaining fields. Now, I don't want to make all these fields required because one, I don't know, well, there's multiple reasons. One, that's going to take a long time. And I'm a busy real estate professional. I don't have time to sit here and click required for every single text box. Two, I don't know which fields he'll have additional information for, or if he'll select yes or no. So I want to leave them just as they are, but by selecting this first residential year, the main residential dwelling was constructed, it'll just kind of help Tony know to stop to fill in those fields. Now I'm going to scroll down because I want to double check and make sure everything's good to go. I'm not missing any information. Now remember when we were adding recipients to the envelope and I said use add pre-tagged roles. See all these yellow text boxes and check boxes? If we had not selected pre-tagged roles, we would have to manually add every single one of these fields. And that is just not an activity I really care to do. That would take up so much time. Everything looks good to go down here. Perfect. And then we have our client, seller 1 and seller 2, signature and date signed. Good to go. Now we're going to continue down to our community association disclosure. Now, this is going to be the same thing as the seller's property disclosure. It has all of these text boxes and check boxes assigned to seller 1. However, none of them are required. So the system would just jump past them. But I can do the same thing that I did with the seller's property disclosure, and I can make this first text box right here. I can click on it and then select required field. Now the system is going to stop Tony and say, hey, you need to fill in the name of the association, and this make it a little bit easier for him to go down and fill in all of these remaining text boxes and check boxes for the seller or for the community association disclosure. And it's very important that he fills in this information correctly because there is a field on here that says by signing this form, he agrees that if anything is incorrect or outdated, that he is going to be the one responsible at closing for any difference in cost. So if he didn't fill in the correct information for how much his HOA costs, he's going to have to pay that difference at closing. And that's going to be a pain in the butt. And he's not going to be pleased. We have our signature fields and date signed fields here. Continuing to scroll down, we have our Rawls Group affiliated marketing disclosure. So you can see here, we have our dates, signature and date signed there. So everything's mapped correctly. We have our wire fraud disclosure, same thing with our signatures, full name, date signed. And then our last form here is our purchase and sale. Again, we'll just go through and make sure that all the information, all the check boxes, everything is good to go. We have our initial fields. Let's keep scrolling. All of our exhibits look good to go. We have our special stipulations. Now we get to our signature page. And previously I'd mentioned how I would show you how to hide your client's contact information from that co-op buyer, or co-op agent, excuse me. The way that you're going to do that is over here on the far left, we're going to click on this pencil icon for pre-filled tools. And then I'm going to select the line icon. And I'm just going to add a line to block out my client's email address. Now, obviously, they could probably figure out what that email address is with that red line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to select color, pick color. I'm going to select black and done. And then I'm going to go to thickness and I'm going to make that a 10-point thickness. Now I have a black bar hiding my client's email address. Is a black bar the most beautiful thing to look at on a purchase and sale agreement? No. But is it effective? Yes. And at the end of the day, it is my fiduciary responsibility to protect my client. And this text box does that. I need to do the same thing for Pepper. So I'm going to right mouse click on that. Oh, well, let me right mouse click on it, but I can hit Command C, Command V, and I can copy paste it. And I can just put that right over Pepper's email address. Now, both my clients' email addresses are hidden and the co-op agent will not be able to reach out to them directly. I'm going to scroll down, double check my information, make sure that it is all correct. The address is a little mumbo jumboed because it's long, but c'est la vie. All right. Any questions on going through reviewing the documents, adding text fields, adding check boxes, making those text boxes required before we send this document? All right, well, perfect. So now our next step is to send this document. So I'm going to click send. Give it a second. Perfect. Now the envelope is letting me know that it's waiting for others. So remember we had set a specific signing order. So it's going to go to Tony first. So I'm going to pull up Tony's email over here. It's going to take a second to load. Here we go. All right. So this is Tony's email. You can see here from Nicholas Core via DocuSign. Please DocuSign 1234 Main Street. I'll open up the email. Here's my private message to just Tony. Please be sure to review and fill in all the fields for the disclosures. And then as Tony's going to click the review documents button. It's going to take him to DocuSign. He's going to agree to use electronic records and signatures, continue, click start. It's going to jump to that first required field. He'll click sign. Then he's going to get a pop-up window to confirm and adopt a signature. So I'm just going to adopt and sign. And it's going to take me to the seller's property disclosure and see it stopped me on this field. When was the year the main dwelling was constructed? So Tony's being required to fill in 2001, and then he can go through and more easily just check all these little boxes. And I'm not going to do all of these here just for time, but I just want to just do a few of them. So that way you can see what it's going to be like for Pepper when she signs. So additional info. Goodness. All right. 2019. Let's do. All right, I'm going to skip all these ones. Continue to scroll through. Oop. And let's go here and let's just check some of these. All right. And then we get here to Tony's signature. He'll click sign. And then we do the same thing here for our community association disclosure. So we'll do mandatory membership, and then we'll type in for neighborhood or HOA. Oh my goodness. John Doe, CMA. Just like type in our numbers here, $2,000, it's paid quarterly. There's 0. initial transfer, so let's do 250. And it's important that he fills in all these fields because this is, if he doesn't fill in these actual costs, your client will be required to pay them. There's not any litigation, no violations. Right. And then Tony can sign, and then sign, initial, sign, and you can see there his email is blacked out. Now that he has signed all these fields, up here in the top right-hand corner or at the bottom of the document is a yellow button that says finish. So I'm going to click finish here. DocuSign is going to have a little pop-up window if he wants to create a DocuSign account. Tell him that he can click no thank you. And then you need to make sure that your clients see the you've finished signing page. It is very important that they see this page. This lets the system know that they are completely done signing. They've filled in all the required fields. And now the document will go on to the next person, which is Pepper. So I'm going to close this here. And then I'm going to open up my personal email as Pepper. So now here's Pepper's email. Scroll down. Here's the email message to both Tony and Pepper. She doesn't have that private message. Pepper is going to click on review documents. It's going to be the same process. We'll agree to use electronic records, continue, start. It's going to jump to the bottom. We're going to sign, adopt and sign. And now it's going to jump all the way to the bottom of the seller's property disclosure because this is a required field. But just for explanations, I want to show you that this is what Pepper would see if she scrolled up. She would see all the text boxes and check boxes that Tony had filled in. So it gives Pepper the ability, or seller too, the ability to review and double check to make sure that all the information on the seller's property disclosure, as well as the community association disclosure, is all correct, because your sellers will be held responsible for any incorrect information. Like for instance, let's say here that Tony had checked that the clothes dryer is going to stay with the house, and Pepper had been like, hey, no, Tony, we are taking our washer and dryer with us. So we would need to update this and double check that. So that way, because if it is checked here on this document and the buyer shows up to the front of walkthrough and is like, hey, where's the washer and dryer? We would have to be responsible for either putting that washer and dryer back or the dryer here, or paying for a new one. Scrolling down, Tony or Pepper is going to sign. I'm going to do the same thing for the community association. She can scroll up, double check, make sure that all this information is correct. Just going to sign, initial, sign, and now she's all done. So she is going to click the finish button. Again, it will ask Pepper if she wants to create a DocuSign account. We'll click no thanks. And now Pepper's received the you've finished signing. So I'm going to close this window, and then I'm going to go to my work email because now it's my turn to sign. So I'm going to come here, please DocuSign, review documents. Click continue, start, sign. Now, remember I created these required text fields. So I'm going to make this at, I'll type in 12 p.m. So this is going to go binding as of 12 p.m. today. I'm going to sign. And now I'm all finished. So those are the only forms I had to sign. I'm going to click finish. I do not want to log in. And now I received the you've finished signing. And this is important to know because once everyone has finished signing, now DocuSign is going to automatically send an email with all of the PDF versions of all the signed documents. So as a part of GREC requirements is once our clients have signed documents, we are responsible for sending signed versions of those documents to our clients for their records. This just kind of helps save with that step. So now here are all the signed PDFs that my clients have access to right here in their inbox seconds after everyone is signed. So now that everyone's signed, I'm going to go back into DocuSign. Click back into here. I'm going to refresh. Oh, wrong tab. Here we go. I am going to refresh this page for the envelope, and it's going to let me know that it's completed. Now that we have all the signed documents, I'm going to come here to the Documents tab, and all of those signed documents have now been added to my Documents tab in the Room Docs folder, because that's the default folder for all these documents. So I want to come over here, and I'm going to select all of the documents that are pertaining to the listing agreement, and I'm going to check all the forms that have the green checkbox that say signed. That lets me know that that is a signed PDF. I'm going to select the move icon, and I'm going to select folder and current room, listing agreement, move. This form here, this certification, this is just a form that's going to show the date and time that everyone signed. This is really just as a double check in case there's any questions on when someone signed. But you don't really need it. It'll just be there. So now that I have all of my signed documents, now I need to go into Command and upload these to send to Lynn and Alita for compliance review. The way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to come back to Command, and then I have my listed folder. The system is going to let me attach folder files from, it's going to default to DocuSign, but if I wanted to upload things directly from my computer, I could just click manual. So I'll select DocuSign, and then the working folder. Let me refresh this so it pulls in the correct folder names. Working folder, I'm going to select listing agreement. And now I'm going to select for each one of the listing or each one of the folders or the documents here. I'm going to select this drop down menu, and it's going to show me a list of all the signed PDFs in that folder. So this is the listing agreement. So I'm going to come here to listing agreement signed. I'm going to add that. Now it is automatically uploading that document directly from DocuSign into Command. I'm going to do the same thing with the HOA disclosure. And you'll notice that because I have already assigned the listing agreement to a prior field, I no longer have that here in my available list of documents. So I'm just going to click Community Association Disclosure. Good to go there. We have our seller's property disclosure. And that just makes it just a little bit easier to go through and minimize the forms that you need. Perfect. So now I've added all of my listing agreement folders. I can come over here to my under contract folder, and I can do the same thing. I would select room docs, and then I can add in my purchase and sale, and that will upload here. Once I have uploaded my documents, I would click here to submit to MC, and this is going to submit my opportunity for Lynn and Alita to review for compliance. They're going to go through all of the documents, and they'll let me know if there are any revisions or changes needed to ensure that my documents are GREC compliant. So I would just click submit here. I don't actually want to submit this since these are all dummy documents. So that is our training for today. We just went through a ton of information. We started in Command. We set up, clicked Start a Transaction to create a room in DocuSign. We confirmed our NERDS ID, added documents, uploaded those documents, created an envelope, sent for signature, signed, and now we've uploaded them directly into Command. What questions do you have? What can I clarify for you this morning?
I don't really have any questions. I actually came from a previous brokerage, so I used a different system, but it was similar processing.
Yeah, so I would guess you probably used DocuSign e-signature.
It was actually transaction desk.
Oh, transact. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So similar process. Each one has their own little nuances. But as you are getting set up with DocuSign and start playing around with it, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can call me, text me, email me. I'd rather you give me a call on a Saturday evening and be like, hey, Nick, I'm having trouble sending out this purchase and sale agreement. And you and I can talk through it right there over the phone. So that way there's no delay in getting your offer sent out.
Great. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Are very welcome. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday and a wonderful weekend. And I will talk to you later.
All right. You as well.
Bye.